When you're considering an opportunity or you have to make a decision, big or small, do you look within you for the answer or do you look outside of you? By outside of you, I mean, do you consult other people for their opinion before you make a decision? Or if you have an idea, do you Google it first as a form of validation to know that your idea is a good idea because it already exists? Or whatever the case may be, who do you consult when it's time to make a decision in your life? Do you consult yourself? Do you consult God? Or do you look outward for other people's opinions and approval? When I was in college, I had a blog. And before I started the blog back then, I Googled I Googled the type of blog that I wanted to have to see if it already existed, to see if people were already doing this so I could learn from them, so I could know what to do. And I didn't see anybody doing it the way I wanted to do it, so I took that as a sign that my idea wasn't a good idea. I felt like if nobody else was doing it, then it probably wasn't a good idea to begin with. So I let that deter me. And I still ended up making the blog because I couldn't shake the nagging feeling. But I ended up doing it and running it the way that other people were running it because they were successful. And I felt like if that's how they found success doing it, then that must be the only way to be successful doing that. And as a result, I absolutely hated it. Like I literally grew to hate it. I resented it. I did not like the fact of feeling like I wasn't being true to myself. I felt like I was betraying myself because I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do. I was doing what I thought I had to do to be successful based on what other people were doing because that's how they found success doing it. And I realized that even when I gained success in doing it that way, even when it started working out for me, I still wasn't happy. I still wasn't fulfilled. I still didn't enjoy it because I knew I wasn't being authentic to myself. The imposter feeling never went away because I was being an imposter. I wasn't being myself. So let's talk about the idea of constantly feeling like you have to consult other people when it's time for you to do things versus consulting yourself and consulting God versus looking within. Let's talk about how we tend to look outside for the answers when we need to be looking within. So welcome back to the show. I'm your host Sensi, and on this podcast we talk about taking accountability for your life to become the best version of yourself. So like I said before, let's talk about looking within. Let's talk about what it means to look within. What does that look like? What has my experience with that been like as somebody who constantly looked outward for approval and opinions of others before I made decisions in my life, big and small. And I also want to address this before we go further in depth. When I say look within, I mean also consulting God because He gives you the desires of your heart. Now, in order to do that, it will require you to have an actual relationship with Him, right? The closer you are to Him, the better because you can hear Him. You know what's in alignment, what's out of alignment. You have a conversation with Him. You know what He wants you to do. You know what He's asking you to do. And that's how you ultimately become the best version of yourself, right? This is based on my opinion because I know other people have other beliefs and blah, blah, blah. For me, the best version of yourself is the version that is in alignment with God's will for your life, with God's plan for your life. Because that's when you get the peace beyond understanding. That's when you find fulfillment. That's when you have impact. And that's when you are truly happy, right? In my experience. And when you don't do these things, that's when you find yourself lacking fulfillment, when you find yourself lacking joy, lacking, the fruits of the Spirit, lacking that peace, right? That peace beyond understanding. So I just wanted to clarify that looking within also means consulting God, right? It's not just about your decisions and your ego and what you want and what would make you happy. I'm talking about like divine alignment, okay? When it comes to certain things like smaller decisions, it may not be that deep, but they all essentially line up, okay? Because, and let me just clarify before I move on. But for example, with the vegan thing, maybe you never necessarily had a conversation with God about being vegan, but we know that our body is a temple, right? And we know that we are supposed to steward over our temples properly. That also factors in what you put into your body. So your diet, right? Now many people have different diets, different opinions of diets, etc., etc. But if you feel like you want to honor that biblical principle of taking care of your body, stewarding over your temple, and you're extending that to your diet, and that's where the being vegan comes from, then now you see how it is connected to God, because it's not just as simple as I want to have a diet. I am trying to care for my temple, and that's the way that I believe is best to do it, by being really mindful of what I eat and not consuming certain things. So in that regard, then yeah, you see how it's connected? Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So yeah, I just wanted to start off with saying that when I talk about looking within, I mean in alignment with God's plan for your life. Sometimes the little things are not, it's not obvious how it's connected, but if you really look closely and if you familiarize yourself with the word, then you can see how it is connected. You can see how something as simple, quote unquote, as stewarding over your diet is you practicing proper temple care, which is what the Bible tells you to do. So that's the first thing, okay? Now, the second thing I want to talk about is sometimes the reason why when you have an idea and you Google it and you don't see any results, or you see results but you don't see anybody doing it the way you thought of doing it, it's because you are supposed to be the first person to do it that way. You are supposed to be the one to do it that way. The idea came to you for a reason. When you don't see people doing it how you wanted to do it, how you envisioned it, it's not a sign that it's a bad idea. It could be that you are the one who's meant to be doing it that way. And if you see other people doing it a particular way and you see them having success in that area, please understand this. You do not have grace for another person's anointing. We do not have the oil for other people's anointing, for what other people are being called to do. So sometimes the reason why they are experiencing the success that they're experiencing in that thing the way they're doing it is because that's their purpose, that's their race, and they're being obedient to God in doing it the way that he asked them to do it. He could ask you to do the same thing but in a different way. That is what you will have grace for. So don't think that you can just look at somebody else and copy exactly what they're doing and then it magically works out for you. Even if it starts working out and you start seeing some level of success, it's not going to be the exact same because that is not your calling. That is not your anointing. Okay? If you simply run your own race, you will see the results that you want to see. That is when things will start working out for you, when you are in alignment with the calling that God has on your life, when you run your own race. Not when you looking around you at what people are doing and you're trying to do it the same way. So you cannot try to replicate what people have. Yes, you can take inspiration. Yes, some things are like principles and practices that if you implement it, it will work to a certain extent. Yes, but don't be afraid to pour out your own creativity when you're doing this thing. Like, don't just take what people are doing word for word and feel like that's the only way I can be successful in this area. You do not have grace for their anointing. Use what he gave you, use what God gave you, and use what he wants you to do. Do what he wants you to do. That's why it's so important to look within, because when you look within, you are consulting him for the instructions on how he wants you to carry out what you are supposed to do so that it can be fruitful, so that it can work, so that it can be successful. But when you're looking outside of you, when you have an idea, when you're looking at what other people are doing, when you bring the ideas that he gives you and you submit it to other people for their opinions, for their approval, you are looking outside of you. You're consulting people that have no idea what you're talking about. He gave you the message, not them. So all they can do is give you an opinion that means nothing, whether it's good or bad, because it's not up to them to decide what you get to do or how you get to do it. That's why it's important to look within. If you're confused about something, go to the person who gave you the idea. What are you going to all of these other people for? What are you consulting all of these other people for? Looking within is where you will find peace. You know, the peace that surpasses all understanding. You get that by being in a relationship with God. You get that by closeness to God. You get that by consulting him. You get that by going to him. He gave you an idea. Go ask him for the instructions. If you're worried things are not working out, if you have all of these things, cast your burdens onto him. Stop going to other people. Stop looking outward. Yes, support is necessary, absolutely. People can help you carry a burden, but ultimately, I have found in my experience, I make so much more progress and I get so much more aligned. I feel so much more aligned when I skip going to people and going directly to him, going directly to the source. When I was going to other people, all it did was make me internalize other people's opinions. It made me take on other people's fears that they were projecting onto me. Like, people didn't see my vision, and so they could only speak from their limited knowledge in the area. And I allowed that to deter me. I allowed that to get in me and cause me to procrastinate, cause me to take a much longer time to take action because I was looking outside. I was looking everywhere else. If I, for some of these things, if I had simply looked within, even when I wasn't that close with God, if I had simply looked within and consulted myself, I would see that this is something that I have not been able to shake. I have not been able to shake this idea. It's a nagging feeling. I just need to do this thing. And it would make me so much happier to get outside of my comfort zone to do this. It would make me so proud of myself to do this. I know I need to do this because I'm trying to change my life in this area. So I need to do this. So when the question was asked, or when I had to make a decision about something, or when there was an opportunity in front of me, had I just looked within, even when I wasn't that close to God, I would have seen that, yes, this is the right thing to do. But I'm telling you, when I decided to look outside and ask other people for their opinions, it just led to unnecessary confusion and frustration. Unnecessary confusion and frustration. Because I'm walking a completely different path from everybody else. So why do I need their opinions on what I'm trying to do? Yes, you can have people help you, support you, mentor you, etc. But you need to look within to understand what it is you're supposed to be doing. So before you can even know who can be a mentor and what are the questions you can ask them for support. What good is it asking people who have never done the thing that you are interested in, who have no experience with it? And another thing on looking within that I have learned is that you have to have the courage to be disliked. And there's a whole episode on this. Go listen to it. Highly recommend. You have to have the courage to be disliked and disapproved in the beginning. Like when you just start, when you break away from the status quo, when you start living for you, when you start saying, okay, I'm tired of being a people pleaser. I'm tired of doing A, B, and C. Or I really have this idea to do something different and I'm afraid. And you say, okay, I've asked other people for their opinions. It's not supportive. I can't shake the idea. I really want to do this thing. I really know this decision that I need to make. And you look within and you say, I know I need to make this. And then you do it. I need you to be okay with being disapproved in the beginning. I need you to be okay with people disliking you. I need you to have the courage to be disliked because everything you do is not going to sit right with everybody. I mean, think about it this way. You could be living a life where in some aspects of your life you are not happy with it, right? But you're still being criticized. Imagine not liking your life, not liking certain aspects of your life, and then still having to deal with being criticized for it. So being criticized for living a life that you actually like is a lot better situation for being criticized for living a life that makes you miserable. The criticism is going to come anyway. That's my point. The criticism you cannot escape because you cannot please everybody. Some people you will please, some people will be happy, some people will like your decision, and other people will not. You cannot please everybody. People are very fickle. Today they like you, tomorrow they hate you. The day after that, they like you again. I need you to have the courage to be disliked. And it's easier said than done. And I'm learning it every single day. Every time I see a negative comment or somebody misunderstands what I said, or they see a short clip of the podcast and they disagree with that point, and they didn't get the full context for the video, but all of a sudden they feel the need to try to drag me. I am learning all the time, every time I see one, to be okay with being disliked, to be okay with being misunderstood, to be okay with knowing that some people will simply never like me. They will simply not be okay if they don't express their disapproval of me or something that I say or do. And it's hard. It's truly hard because I'm a human being with real feelings. People tend to forget that. Every time they see somebody like on a public platform, they act like they're making a comment about a talking head that has no feelings. So trust me, I know it's not easy, and you don't have to have a platform to know this, because in your real life you could want to do something and then you have to deal with your family and your friends criticizing you or telling you you're making a bad decision, you're throwing your life away, why are you leaving this relationship, you're getting older, blah 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 blah. You don't need a platform for criticism. You can experience it in everyday life. What I'm saying is, you need to have the courage to be disliked. You need to build that muscle. What I've realized is putting myself in situations where people dislike me and seeing it over and over, even though sometimes it hurts, it actually helps, because it's like exposure therapy, if you will, where the more you expose yourself to something, the less afraid you feel, the less you fear it, because you survived. You survived. Like, you are facing your fears head on by just exposing yourself to more of it. And when you keep surviving, it just makes you feel like invincible almost. It might still hurt. Trust me, it might still hurt your feelings when somebody says something negative, but you will realize that outside of that negativity, outside of the disapproval I may feel temporarily, or I may experience temporarily from family and friends for making this decision, when you're actually living in alignment and doing the things that you want to do because you're looking within, you realize that you are so much happier. You will realize that you have so much more peace now. You will realize that you are getting closer to God, and it feels amazing. And then the positive feelings from that will far outweigh the negative feelings from being criticized here and there by a few people who don't matter. And even if they do matter because it's your family, still, you will realize that you have to grow up and set boundaries and not make your worth based on your family and friends liking you or approving you. There is so much peace here, okay? But it's something that you just have to practice. You have to learn. You have to have the courage to be disliked. Go listen to that episode. Highly recommend. Now let's talk about some of the things that I have found by looking within. And I've already touched on some of them. Like peace beyond understanding, okay? Getting closer to God and having that peace and knowing that even if I am not getting the results that I would like, I'm at peace knowing that I am living the most authentic version of myself, the most fearless version of myself, the most aligned version of myself. And I am truly grateful for the peace that comes with that. I am truly grateful for my relationship with God and seeing how He has been using all of my experiences to mold me into the person that He wants me to be as I embark on this journey of being aligned, right? The peace I have gathered in my spirit, in my heart, from trusting Him and trusting myself and making those difficult decisions and looking within and not consulting people anymore when I have to make a decision, not relying on people to clap for me when I win or to support me before I start or when I just start. The peace I have from all of my experiences thus far since committing to living a more authentic and aligned life, I could never put that into words. If you know, you know, but I could never put that into words. Like, I truly feel like, and I don't want to jinx myself, but God forbid, if I were to drop dead today, I would be at peace with the life I lived because I have no regrets. I have no regrets. I have no what ifs. And yeah, there are a couple things that, Lord, help me experience this before my time comes. But at the very least, I know that even if I haven't experienced it yet, I have a plan in place. It's on the list to do it. Like, I already made the decision to do it. So I wouldn't have passed away with knowing that I never even tried or I never even made a decision. I would be at peace with knowing that I was brave enough to at least decide to do that thing or decide that I deserved it. And I lived my life every day like I deserved it and that I knew it was coming. I did not feel that way when I was out of alignment, when I was looking outside of me, when other people's opinions weighed more than my own. I didn't feel that way. I was very miserable. And I cannot begin to put in words how grateful I am for my life and for making that decision to be true to myself. And I want that for you. That's why I'm making this episode. That's what this whole podcast is for. It's about accountability. It's about saying you have the power to change your life. But if you choose to have a victim mentality, you will forever be a victim of your circumstances. You will let your circumstances determine your life. That's why everything I talk about is from the standpoint of how can you change your life? What can you do? Because you have the power to do that. And I know how amazing I have felt since deciding to take accountability for my life and creating the life that I desire. And I want that for you. I want that for you. I cannot begin to explain the peace that comes with that. And then also the fearlessness too. Like, I'm telling you, and I mentioned this on the last episode. I mentioned this on a previous episode, but like when you start stepping outside of your comfort zone and making those difficult decisions and looking within and being in alignment, it puts you on a trajectory of doing more of that because you realize you faced the fear and you didn't die. You didn't die. It wasn't even as bad as you thought. All of the things you were anxious about never even happened. And it makes you fearless. It makes you realize over time that it's all in your head. It's all in your head. That's what I've been realizing, that it's all in my head. The fears, the worries, the anxiety, it's all in my head. It's me assuming the worst possible outcome of a thing. But if I look at my track record of all of the times that I faced my fears and I did the things that terrified me, it was never that serious. It was never that serious. I survived 100% of those experiences. So it makes you feel so fearless. It makes you feel so fearless and so confident in yourself. And honestly, it has allowed me to redefine what I think beauty is. Like I'm not talking about physical beauty. I'm talking about like life. Like the beauty of life is in the journey. It's in the entire experience. It's in like the steps you take every day. It's not about the destination. And I've made an episode about that. But sometimes it can be so easy to get wrapped up in the destination. It can be so easy to get wrapped up in comparison, comparing where you are to other people, to your peers. And just by living a more authentic life, by looking within, by being in alignment with what God wants for me, it has caused me to redefine how I see life, how I define life. And it's like a constant reiteration of that point of it's about the journey, not the destination. And there's just so much peace on this neck of the woods. There's so much peace. There's so much peace, and I want that for you. So that's why I'm making this episode, to encourage you to look within, to stop consulting everybody and everything outside of you. Start looking within, start getting closer to God so that you know what He wants for you, so that you can know what alignment looks like. Aren't you tired of doing it your way? Because I can tell you, when I was doing things my own way, child, that was a very ghetto way to live my life. That was a very ghetto way to live my life. I didn't even realize it then, but I see it now. That was a very ghetto way to live my life. I was literally just out here winging it. Very ghetto. Very, very ghetto. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. Would not recommend. Okay? A few more episodes that will help you with this topic. That will help build on this one and help put you on the path of starting to look within. Is episode 152. Your need for approval is holding you back. Okay, if you struggle with people pleasing and all of that, listen to that episode. Episode 144, have the courage to be disliked. Like I said earlier. Episode 35, this is why you think you're behind in life. That's the run your own race episode. So if you find yourself struggling with comparison and looking here and looking there at what that person is doing, what this person is doing, listen to that episode. That's number 35. And then lastly, episode 12, an oldie but goodie, why your pain is necessary. Because when you're in the middle of all of the pain and you're suffering, it's very hard for you to have a mindset of, oh, this is necessary, this is molding me, this is da-da-da-da. No, you are just suffering. I was just suffering. When I was in the middle of that, I did not see a light at the end of the tunnel. Quite frankly, I did not want there to be a light at the end of the tunnel. I was done. Okay? But it's only now, looking back in hindsight, I can see why the pain was necessary, because all of it led to all of the things that I talk about on my podcast. It led to my growth. Okay? But yeah, I would highly recommend you listen to these episodes and you start looking within instead of consulting everybody's opinion, consulting this person, that person, your family, your friends, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, Google, everybody but God, everybody but yourself. It's time to start looking within. Okay? If you like this episode, please leave a thumbs up and a comment. Let me know what resonated, which part resonated with you. And if you're listening to the audio, then make sure you leave a 5-star rating and a written review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen. And that is all I have to say today, and I will talk to you next Sunday.